Hi, I'm Steve Hoffert,
And I'm Fred Emmett.
and we're the Food Pharmacist. Today we want to talk about something that's pretty applicable to this time of the year, and especially this week, which is the week of Christmas, and that is stress.
Yeah.
Many people come in, especially this time of the year, you can just tell by looking at them the effect that stress has on the body. And so today we want to talk about just some basically the effects that stress has, and then also too maybe some little things you can do to help eliminate and reduce stress. I don't think there's a way to really get rid of stress, but there's things you can do to help reduce it. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And so kind of what I'd like to talk about a little bit is the certain aspects of stress, and probably the most, to make it easy and to break it down, we'll break it down into four basic simple things. First thing we'll talk about is the physical emotional part of stress. We'll talk about the chemical part of stress, which is really what you eat. And then maybe the last thing is poor quality sleep habits, as far as that goes. Fred, you want to talk maybe just a little bit in general about what you see people coming in, the effects on the body with stress?
Well, certainly the family situations and this time of year is accumulating more financial debt, buying Christmas presents and whatnot. I'm going to let Steve talk a little bit more about that. But my part of it is, and my interest is in the effects that blood sugar has on the stress to the body. Whenever you get a holiday meal or a pastry or something like that that spikes blood sugar, you have a corresponding downside of that tells your body to release cortisol and adrenaline. And those two are the stress hormones, because if your body didn't release those chemicals, your blood sugar would just continue to plummet after the surge of insulin. So that's very controllable.
Well, I thought if I was eating something like a pastry, that was like relieving. It made me feel good. That actually stress?
Yeah, well, in the beginning, it's a two-pronged effect. You get the initial feel-good from the opioids and so forth in the food, but as blood sugar rises, your body releases insulin, and insulin then causes your blood sugar to drive to the bottom, and your body says, uh-oh, we're about to crash. And it fires off cortisol and adrenaline to metabolize proteins and fats to raise your blood sugars. And that firing of those two hormones, cortisol and adrenaline, those are the stress hormones. The adrenaline is the fight or flight hormone that, when you see a saber-toothed tiger, that your body reacts to either fight that animal or run away. And then cortisol is the anti-inflammatory hormone, and it's related to belly fat accumulation. And Stephen and I were talking this morning before started shooting about a concept called cortisol resistance. So not only do you get the insulin resistance from the constant bombard of blood sugar and insulin, you get the cortisol resistant, where your body is not responding to it the way it was supposed to play. And the other thing that particularly of interest to me is sleep deprivation and its effect on stress. And that goes along with how important it is for your body to have that time to repair. And if your body doesn't get that, it never gets back to homeostasis and able to heal itself. And then there's other things that kind of go with that first part of it. If a person's dehydrated, your body's response to stress is heightened. And if you don't breathe effectively, something that I see with patients is I use the mayonnaise, the ketchup jar that you try to open it, and then it doesn't open, and you do one thing unconsciously, and all of a sudden you're able to pop that jar open. And what you do unconsciously is hold your breath. And by holding your breath, instantly blood is diverted from the internal organs to your muscles, and you get just that much stronger. And many times people don't breathe effectively. They're what I call breath holders. So simple things like adequate amounts of water, sleep, controlling blood sugar, exposure to toxins such as gluten and casein. While your brain loves it, your body sees it as a toxin and responds accordingly through the stress response.
And and that's exactly what you're saying. We always hear that thing, stress will kill you, and it really, really will. And you can see the effect stress has on people. I use presidents as an analogy. You look at how they age real rapidly because every day their lives are filled with stress. And you look at the really negative effects like we talked about. Stress response was made to be an immediate response to an acute issue. But, for our response, like you said, when the white tiger came, we had to survive. But we have things that occur with stress. And when it's chronic every day, the bills don't go away. The family issues don't go away. This time of the year, the family all comes over to the house, or the credit card bills, are on the way. Those stressors don't go away. The effects it has, there's immediate effects that are long-term, which are things like increase in blood pressure, increase in blood sugars, increase in triglycerides. Cortisol basically makes you, like you said, talk about dehydration. It works as a diuretic. You begin to lose fluid. Your electrolytes get out of whack. All of those things have immediate health consequences, also in terms like your hormones. If you make cortisol, high amounts of cortisol day after day, guess what happens? Well, we began to wonder, why do all these guys have low testosterone lately? Well, guess what? Unfortunately, if you look at the beginning part of your hormones, it's cholesterol. And unfortunately, if we have to make cortisol all day long because we're under so much stress, guess what begins to suffer? Our other hormones, like estrogen, progesterone, and even in men, testosterone. We wonder why all these guys have low testosterone. Maybe we need to think about, hey, maybe we need to reduce the stress to help our testosterone levels. Those are just some things, and there's a lot of things that we can do, though, to kind of help control that. And like Fred talked about, eating and controlling blood sugars, that's an important aspect. When you're under periods of stress, you really should be on some certain supplements, especially supplements that are high in A, high in vitamin C, vitamin E, and especially all your B vitamins. Your body just chews through those B vitamins under periods of stress. The other aspect, Fred, I think people need to look at, and like you talked about, is breathing techniques. Learn how to control your breathing to get your cortisol level down. Because long-term high cortisol levels will definitely kill you. Probably the other thing, too, is people have to keep in mind is whenever you begin to have high stress, your body goes into this protection mode. So it's going to basically shunt a lot of blood to the muscles, and then basically all the other blood that take care of things like food digestion is going to be poor. Things like reproduction, your body could care less about reproduction because it's trying to stay alive. It could care less about digesting food and reproduction. It's more worried about taking and trying to stay alive during that time.
You touched on 2 points that I was going to ask you. What percentage of disease do you think is associated with chronic stress?
Because stress is a disease of inflammation. I really think, honestly, probably 80% of our chronic disease nowadays probably at least is related to inflammatory conditions, and stress basically is just fuel for that fire.
And the other thing, you're exactly right, 75 to 80% of our modern diseases are indirectly related to stress. You talked about reproduction. One of the things that occurs with chronic stress is called a progesterone steal, and progesterone, as its name is, progestation. It's the pregnancy hormone. It's not only necessary for women, it's also necessary for men to have. And so you have this stealing of progesterone trying to make cortisol. And so your body's when you're under stress, your body says, the last thing that I want to be considering doing is reproducing.
And a couple of just last things. One, the other aspect is it has a tremendous impact on your immune system. Our immune system's going to tank when we're under a lot of stress. That's also a big impact. The other thing is thyroid function. We talk about wanting to lose weight during the holidays, but when you're under a lot of stress, one, we eat bad, that's a fact of it. We're not as active. But secondly, our thyroid function is reduced tremendously because of the effect of cortisol. So all those type things have a big impact. We talked about some supplements. There's some things which are called adaptogens you can take, things like ginseng, rhodiola, ashwagandha. Those are all things that can basically help to control that adrenal or cortisol response. If you're certain high, there's certain things you can take like phosphatidylserine, things for sleep like L-theanine that'll help you with rest. And there's also things, if we have low cortisol, we've had long periods of high stress, we reduce our cortisol production. We can take adrenal extracts and also things like licorice extracts, really good. But like you said, there's so much about this topic. Like you said, it's almost stressful talking about it because there's so much that you can actually do and to handle it. But we just kind of want to give you some basics. As always, if you have further questions or you want more information about this topic, you can always email me at steveh@magnoliapharmacy.com.
And I'm Fred E. at magnoliapharmacy.com.
And from us, we want to wish you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
And spend time with your family because our time with them is very, very precious.
Thank you, and y'all have a great day.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.